All right, we're back.
Oh, we're back. Oh, geez, I was just filing away my signed Blu-ray copy of Mordecai.
Unbelievable.
Throw that back in. Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of Talking Upstream. This is literally my favorite show that comes out on Sundays that stars Dylan, who is recently nominated as Podcaster of the Year.
Host of the year. No, it was host. It was host. It was not podcaster.
Host of something of the year.
Yeah, sure.
Dylan Terry. Wow. How have you been, Dylan? How are you, my friend?
Yeah, I'm doing all right. You
look good. I like when you smile. Usually you're yawning. That means you like our guests.
Don't talk about it. No. How are you, Zach?
I'm doing great, man. So, you know, the show, if you don't know what the show is, we find our favorite creators that have made cool podcasts or comic books or even foam non-edible delights that you wear on your head or shoulders. And then we talk to them about why they do what they do and how they do what they do. Now, Dylan and I, we spent a lot of time trying to find out how to make a movie that's going to make us big. You know, how do we make a movie? How do you make a movie? And then I stumbled upon a movie about making a movie, and it really changed my outlook. And I'm so excited on like I was saying, and unfortunately, Dylan was like, "Hey, we should start hitting record, Zach, because you're talking way too much." But the thing is, like, there's a lot of times I watch a lot of movies, and I'm like, "Oh my god, this movie is really cool," and I reach out to these people, and they're like, "No, you're not important enough. No." And then every once in a while, I like a movie so much, I'm like, "Okay, they're going to say no, but I'm going to send an email." And I sent an email to two people that made a movie, and one of them quickly said, "Yeah, I'm in. This sounds cool." And Dylan is now going to introduce our guest of the week, which I'm super excited about.
Yeah, so this week joining us is Tanner Thomason. He's an actor and producer. He's known for Faith-Based, a few other projects I'll let him talk about primarily, but I think Faith-Based is the big recent one. So without further ado, welcome, Tanner.
Hey, what's going on, guys? How you doing? Thanks for having me. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, doing well.
Mr. Tanner Thomason, how are you, sir?
I'm good. I'm doing super good. I'm excited to talk to you guys about creativity. I can't wait to hear these pitches. I'm going to give you a warning right now. I'm a tough pitch. You better have your pitches together. Pitches be tripping. And so pitching is hard. Pitching is a hard thing. And that's what I'm here for, is to hear these pitches, steal your ideas, and claim them as my own.
Oh, perfect. That's literally all we're trying to do. We don't want to make it big. We just want to have a big lawsuit. That would make us so happy.
That's the hallmark of success in Hollywood.
I think so. First and foremost, thank you so much for being part of our show and just literally just listening to us drool all over you. And that means a lot. And like Dylan said earlier, Faith-Based is the one that kind of, you know, made me aware of who Mr. Tanner Thomason was. But do you want to tell people listening, like, what you're most proud of, or the things that you've done that you're like, this is awesome?
Oh my gosh. Wow. You know, it's so tricky. I've been very lucky to have a couple different, and sort of different categorically, but different, like, nice moments of success. Faith-Based, boom, I'm repping the hat because I have no shame, is like, is definitely most aligned with like where I would like to work the most. Like nothing is better than making up a story that resonates with you and your friends, and putting your team together and sort of working on this labor of love, this sort of passion project, and seeing it all the way through its end, and then putting it out into the world. And then honestly getting to talk to guys like you who saw the thing and it connected somewhere with them, and other people on the internet, and the few live screenings that we got to do. This was obviously right before COVID. And so it was just an incredible experience. And I'm like so happy that we got to do it. I've had a couple talk shows. Those are things that I also really enjoy. I love getting to have conversations about pop culture. I love getting to do interviews with, big time, real celebrities who do all those things that we want to do. And so I don't know. I feel very lucky to have done any of it.
Yeah. Now, when you started in like the movie business, you were more of an actor, correct? Like you didn't start off writing. I saw that your first writing credits were a little bit after you kind of were doing some stuff.
Mhm.
Now, was your passion, was it writing and creating, or did you just kind of want to be in the mix?
It's interesting. I think originally I was probably kind of wanting to be in the mix, and I kind of naively was like, I want to be an actor. And that was, I'm old and I've been in LA a long time now. I've been in Los Angeles 16 years. And so a lot changed from 2005 to 2022. Obviously, we're talking about really the onset of social media. And so before then, we're talking about like the 90s and moving backwards. You could come to Los Angeles and you could have one thing in mind that you wanted to do, and that could be your route. You're like, I'm going to be just a writer, or I'm going to be just a producer, or I'm going to be just an actor. And people had entire whole careers built on that one idea. I don't think that's true anymore. Anybody who's moving to Los Angeles or New York or any other city where there's more and more entertainment industry going on, and you go, I'm going to be this one thing, you're giving yourself an incredibly difficult task to do. And so along the route of like, oh, I'm going to audition, I'm going to be an actor, I'm going to do all this, I'm going to like be on these shows and be on these movies. Eventually that doesn't start to play out, and you go, oh my God, how am I going to continue to do this? No one else is like knocking on my door and dropping scripts off. Why isn't that happening? And so eventually you go, oh, I've got to create these things for myself. I have to create the opportunity for myself, kind of like what you guys are doing with this podcast. And so very similar idea.
Yeah, and so to hop back to faith-based, now that is something that it feels, it's got like a really cool idea to it, but it also feels very polished. Now, how long have you worked on that? Like, how long did you have to work on that project before that came to like just a final product?
It's funny, man. Like if we want to really isolate faith-based and just like carve out everything that came before and all the little steps and all the little short films and all the times Luke and I collaborated on things, if we just want to ignore all of that, which that is honestly probably the most important parts of it, faith-based started out as a really rough idea in the fall of 2018 when it began. And then we were filming summer of 19. Yeah, that's correct. And then released fall of 20. So it started out as a really rough idea, kind of joked around some beers and appetizers at a bar up the street. And we're like, wouldn't this be so funny? And we could do this as a mockumentary. Originally, we were legitimately 100% guys. We were like, we're going to make this for no money. We're going to film it as a mockumentary because that means we can have low production value, but it's still sort of believable. And we'll film it on our phones if we have to. But it's time for us to make something that stars us and stars our friends. And that's where it started. That's where it truly began. And then it sort of organically leveled up at every single step. And so suddenly at the end of it, we're like, holy shit, this is a real movie. I don't know if that answers the question exactly. I can get more into, I can break it down more, or whatever you guys want.
Oh, that's okay. I'm sure I'll ask another question that will wrap right back around it. Before I do talk nonstop, Dylan, do you have any questions you want to just try to squeeze in here?
Well, I mean, I kind of going back to that last answer. If it organically leveled up, was there anything that you found to be particularly important to focus on while you were kind of like expanding production? Because it sounds like you might have expanded production during like making it.
Well, it's funny. So I have this shirt, Fix It in Pre. I wore this for a very specific reason. You can see an editor there screaming at the monitor because someone didn't fix it in Pre. And like, this is very much like a, we'll fix it in post kind of thing. But like Fix It in Pre really it's really everything. Like every sort of like problem or creative issue you might come across. It's extremely rare for something to come completely out of the blue. That's never happened before. You know what I'm saying? And so many issues and so many things along the way can be solved in your pre-process. And that includes the short films and the team that you build leading up to your big, like, oh, now we're going to make a movie, right? And so as far as this thing leveling up, like it literally started out as like conversations over some drinks and like jokes about what would be funny. We started out, probably most importantly, we had a unique premise. And it was the premise of a couple guys who don't know anything about church and don't know anything about movies. They kind of look at this as a get rich quick scheme, and they're idiots. So they're like, oh, this makes perfect sense. We're going to make a faith-based movie and we're going to make millions of dollars. And because these movies don't have to be good. That's kind of a unique premise. There aren't really a ton of movies about that. And it's also one of those things where it's like, if you're from, depending on your background, depending on where you're raised, depending on if you're raised in the church or church adjacent or any number of those kinds of things, this connects to you specifically. And so we hadn't seen anyone do this before. We hadn't seen Seth Rogen do this idea. And so everyone we told the idea to was like, haha, that's funny. And we're like, okay, we've got something. No one's done it. Let's really focus on it and explore it. And it started out as an outline, and we like talked through scenes on scenes on scenes. And then like we got the story fleshed out. Luke banged out the script. Everyone we sort of talked to the idea about, talked to what we wanted to do. They thought it was hilarious. We were able to raise a little money. Like we each, Luke, Vince, and myself, each ponied up the first like chunk of change to say, this is serious. We are invested in this thing. We're not just trying to talk people out of their money. We're invested in it. We've got skin in this game, sort of in fundraising. And that, you know, legitimized us when we took this to people that we'd worked with in the past and like friends where we're like, hey, we're trying to raise a little money to do this. We've got skin in this game. Here's what we're trying to do. And that sort of legitimized us a little bit and helped us continue to raise a little bit of money. At a certain point, you're looking at it and you go, okay, well, we've certainly got enough money because we're not paying ourselves anything. We're getting a hell of a deal because we're calling in every single favor that we've built up for the last 15 years. So since we're saving money in all of those places, where is it okay to spend a little money? And not that we spent lots of money, but we just weren't afraid to reach out to agencies and say, hey, we've got this really unique role and this really unique script. Everyone we've talked to, it's funny. The pitch of it is like very interesting and unique. And then you feel completely confident to hand that off to somebody. You know, it's Lance Reddick is in the film, for instance, right? And so Lance is a brilliant actor, an incredibly kind human being. But you know what? Lance probably gets pitched cop roles 1,000 times a year. You know, like he is sort of famous for playing sort of authoritative figures like that. And so here we come around and we pitch him the idea of like, okay. But what if you're a pastor? That's already different. And you adopted a little white kid who turns out to be a loser. That's so unique. No one's ever pitched him that before.
Yeah.
And so he goes, oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I'll read that. And then same thing for like when you get around to like a Jason Alexander, it's like he's pitched versions of George Costanza left and right.
Yeah.
You know, he's probably heard every single one of them in the books. He can see it coming from 1 mile away. But you pitch him the idea of like him playing a shady head of a multi-level marketing scam who like has these like faux infomercials where he's this incredibly confident guy, and then you have I'm not going to spoil my own film, but then you have a reveal at the end that says he's not the person who you thought he was after all. Like that's a unique and interesting pitch, and so that's something else that you can fix and is like if you're going to go for these kind of people, you don't pitch them something they've heard before. You know, like at a certain point, some celebrities just want to do something fun and something interesting, and you know there are a lot more people that you can get with an interesting idea than you can get with a boring idea and thousands of dollars.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah. I've literally never heard that before. That's a cool take. Now, speaking of faith-based, you know, like that's something that you worked on with your partner Luke, and in the movie, you know, it's interesting. Like, did you know that you guys were, when you were pitching this thing, were you going to be the two people in the movie? Yeah. Was that okay? And then I guess at some point you had to decide, all right, one of us is like, you know, the good looking, funny one. And then the other one is kind of like,
and the other one is Luke, right? That's
yeah. Did you know?
He's not here to defend himself. So yeah.
Did you know that, like, going into it, did you know that Luke was going to be the one who was going to be kind of pooped on the whole time? Or was that kind of like, one of us has to be this role?
So there's a couple things going on. Luke is my best friend. We talk about everything every day. It's kind of gross. And so we have been collaborating for years. And so we know how kind of like our comedic dynamics work. And in the writing of Faith Based, we literally just used our own names. Like from the very beginning in the script, the characters' names are Luke and Tanner. And what's like, whether that was a smart thing to do or not, to like actually make our names the names of the characters in the movie, it's like whatever, but it's hilarious. So we went with that. Part of it, not that, I don't know how much this played into it or not. During filming, this is an interesting one. During filming, I was still working at CBS at the time, working for a like streaming talk show brand, where I was hosting and doing celebrity interviews during 2019. And so I knew that I wasn't going to be able to get 3 weeks off of work. Like there's just no way that I was going to be able to do that. What I did have was a lot of sick days built up. And so because we were calling in favors everywhere, everyone got paid. We didn't get to pay the crew as much as we might have liked, but in return for that, what we offered was easy filming days and short weekend shoots, right? And so the funnest thing, everybody, I'm sure you guys have like gone out and shot skits on the weekends with your friends. And so you'll dedicate a whole day and you'll shoot a skit, or maybe it's a couple days, right? And we used to love doing that. We did so much of it for years, and it would be something we'd bang out in the weekend. All right, well, I'm working full time. We don't have enough money to tell other people they can't take other jobs while we're filming this, right? We're not going to go 3 weeks straight. So we decided to shoot weekends. And so we would shoot Friday to Sunday. And what I would do is I knew I had enough sick days, and I kind of, I haven't named the company. Okay, cool. I haven't named the company I was working for. Wasn't really enjoying it. So I didn't mind taking my Friday sick days to go work on the film. And so I would have a sick day on Friday. So I'd shoot all day Friday, all day Saturday, all day Sunday. And sometimes they would shoot like a Monday, or they'd begin on a Thursday, but we'd shoot on the weekends. And so we allowed like all of our crew to continue taking their normal gigs or their normal jobs during the week. So it's like, that's the thing that's really paying their bread and butter. We still paid them. Everybody got paid. And we created a very fun sort of environment. And so we shot it on weekends around there. And so getting back into like the roles and the way it's laid out, like I didn't have full availability at that point in time. And so we shot all of my stuff. I mean, the entire film was shot on weekends, but everything that I ever did would be in like 1 or 2 days on the weekend. Whereas like Luke is in almost every single scene of the film. And so basically he needed full availability. And so that played into some of it, but really it's like his character's arc is sort of the A arc, if you will, of the film. And so, yeah, I mean, it was just like, I don't know. That's how we designed it.
Yeah. No, that's cool. There is one part of the movie that I was curious if there was any kind of backstory to. You guys in the movie spend some time like doing these puzzles that are different versions of you and friendships. Was that written specifically for the movie, or because it seemed like that there's a little more personality to that than maybe just an off joke? Where'd that come from?
It started out as like it was, we're literally sitting at this table. And we were like coming up with like stupid jokes and things that we thought would be like epic, and like things that we just thought would be ridiculous for these two characters to do. And then somehow we got into this idea that like whenever they were like brainstorming at home, they were working on puzzles. And I don't know how we got to that, but that was the thing that we got to. And then along the way, inevitably you have to ask the question, well, what's the puzzle they're working on? And the idea was that these two were a duo. They always did everything together. So what if they were doing puzzles of famous duos? And then we were laughing about that. And then it evolved again. It's like, what if it's them as these famous duos? Yeah. And so that's where that's like where it went. If you give me a second, I'll run and grab something. I'll be right back.
Of course. Sure. Yeah.
Funny to have that when our opening sequence is exactly that.
What?
No, we've got our faces on movie.
Oh, I know. I'm really hoping that he grabs the Sesame Street puzzle, because that is so cute. Because I've always thought about like, me and you doing that. Like I was like, oh, if Dylan and I were these classic duos, who would we be? We don't have too much. Oh wow,
that's really good.
That's beautiful.
I'm gonna hold on. You're muted.
Oh, you're on mute, Tanner. Oh no, we can't hear you. Oh no. Can you unmute him?
No. Can't unmute a guest.
We can't hear you.
Boop, you got me now?
Oh yeah.
You're
No,
muted
I
since
can't
you
hear you.
returned.
Give me just a second. Sorry,
Yeah.
guys. I know that's a pain in the butt.
No, it's okay.
No, that's
Hello?
Hello.
hello.
Settings.
Love
Oh, he might have
that.
us muted too.
Well, I think if he
Hello?
took his...
Can you talk to me for a second?
Oh,
Yeah, sure.
absolutely.
Here you are.
Yeah,
I don't know why it's not.
it's okay. You
What
might have
about
to go-
now?
How about now?
Oh yeah. Can you hear
Testing.
us? Can you hear
I got you
us?
now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Great. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was a gorgeous.
How far back do you want me to go?
If you could just describe what that picture was, that'd be great.
Yeah, we missed the entire explanation.
Okay, missed the explanation. Sorry, I know you don't want to like edit it and whatnot. So
It's fine.
probably
It's funny.
Threw a little wrench into it. So this here, here we go, prop time. This is why it's always good to find a good production designer, because they will take your lame, dumb ideas and turn them into something so magical and creative, such as this. And so the whole idea for the puzzles thing was that these two guys are joined at the hip. It's kind of a gross joke based in reality. My friends, everybody roasts us for this. Anyhow, so the idea is that they were brainstorming as they were working on puzzles. And then someone was like, well, what are they working on puzzles on? And then we're like, what if every puzzle is like a famous duo? And we thought that was hilarious. Like they were doing a puzzle of Bert and Ernie. but then someone was like, oh, well, what if they are like a cover song? What if they are the famous duos in each one of them? So if you pay very close attention, you can see us as Mr. White and Jesse Pinkman from Breaking Bad. Here's like the reveal in the movie that the game they were putting together is literally the two of us as Jon Snow and Khaleesi, which is like such a very far way to go for a very stupid joke. But that's what I like.
That's great.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. I think that's so cool. And the way I kind of took that in the film was that when you saw all those the puzzles completed, it was almost like that was all of like the minor riffs that you two as characters had, and that's how many times you guys came back together and achieved your goals, which I thought was just so clever and really like it was almost a throwaway joke that I loved. I thought that was so nice.
You know, Zach, you understood that exactly. It does represent all of the riffs we have as characters and coming together piece by piece.
Yeah, I thought it was so cool because that's the way that Dylan and I he doesn't say this, but I say that we're best friends, and I text him every single day, and I run every idea past him, and I always think of us as like Beavis and Butthead or Bert and Ernie, and then I saw that movie, I'm like,
Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. That's
Thelma and Louise, that's us. So when I saw the movie, I was like, oh my god, these are two guys that are really doing it, and I felt the same way when I watched like Dirty Work. It was like these are just two people that are just trying so hard to achieve a goal, and all they really do is love each other, and that's it. And I think that's so cool. Now to sort of away from faith-based for a second. Now you have a lot of credits on IMDb, cinematography, casting director, everything. And it seems like a lot of that branched off right after your appearance on Rizzoli and Isles. Now, was there any correlation to that show and then you being like, okay, now I want to direct? Because that was like 2011 when you were on that show. And then it was like right around 2011 when you started editing and directing and writing your own stuff. Now, that was kind of a joke anyway, but what was it around that time that made you just kind of explode and do so much more stuff?
That's probably, so I moved to town in 2005. I started working as a PA for MTV. I worked on a little reality dating show called Next, wherever they were like Next. And so I worked on Next way back in the day, and I was working in casting, and I was getting familiar with like operating a camera, just because you had to be able to operate a camera to do casting and all this stuff. And so I started doing casting in like 2007. Then you had to be able to edit a little to edit casting tapes together. So that was like 7, 8, 9. I was still auditioning for just like whatever I could get as an actor. Booked Rizzoli and Isles. That sort of gave me a little taste of like, oh, okay, this is what a real TV show's like. This is what a real set is like. This is like what it can be like. And so then I'd been here a few years. I had that experience and I felt like my skills were growing a little bit. And I just leaned in. I just really tried to lean in into making as much as I could make creatively. I don't even mean like, like
Mm-hmm.
making money. It's just like, oh, can I make this short film with these friends? These guys are trying to make this thing. How can I help you? Do you want me to? I'll operate the camera. I'll help you cast it, or I'll help you write it, or I'll direct this thing for you, or whatever it might be. Oftentimes, to be honest, like taking on jobs that I didn't fully understand, but the group of people that I was working with at the time, we're all trying to level up, and none of us had it figured out. And so it's sort of a little trial and error and repetition and just keeping on doing it. And so that's kind of what I fell into from like 2010 to, I don't know, since then, really. I guess.
Yeah. I love that, and you know that's the thing that I always like to do as well. It's like, you know, hey, just keep touching as much different jobs as possible, because you know, and I grew up kind of in the restaurant industry while watching movies, and it's like, hey, you can't be a good manager of anything unless you know how to wash dishes, unless you know how to
Yeah.
you know bust the tables, and it's cool that you're really learning everything about the industry to make sure that all of your products have at least some experience to it. Now we're going to switch back to faith-based, if that's okay, before we get to our pitches.
Mhm.
Now, watching the movie, you could tell that it was a passion project to start, because it is two friends doing something cool, and then you start seeing the casting, and you're like, wow, this is some pretty big deals. You know, like Champ from Anchorman,
David Koechner.
right? It's such a weird, cool cameo, and you're like, oh, that's an interesting character. And like you said, Jason Alexander. Now, when the casting was coming in, you had to be so impressed with the people that you could get to make this thing become whole. Will you mind talking a bit about what was it like working with such like a big name cast, like just doing little projects with bigger people?
Sure. Yeah, it's interesting. If you want to watch something and get a look at faith based years before faith based, Luke and I did a little short film a few years ago. Geez, 2012, 2013, something like that. We did a little short film called The Newest Testament.
Hmm.
And the Newest Testament is about the early return of Christ, who's here to clear up some misconceptions. And we co-wrote it. I directed it. Luke starred in it, and we have a lot of the same cast members. Not the famous people, but Carly Craig, who plays Brandy in the film. Richard Reilly, who's like one of our bar regulars. Marlon, who's a bar regular. Like it's basically all of the same friends from the Newest Testament are in faith based. And so in terms of like working with celebrities who are sort of much more recognizable and much more established, it's you want to be smart about it. It's you don't necessarily when you're making something, when you guys are like forgive me, I don't know if you've made a feature yet, but when you do, it's like you don't necessarily want to go to the most famous person you want first, right? Because they're taking a risk by saying yes to your
Mm-hmm.
project. And so you kind of have to be strategic about it and figure out like, oh, here are the roles where we feel like we need some kind of face or name. How do we move this around in chess pieces so that we can position ourselves to get our like big goal? And our big goal was like the biggest sort of name possible for this Nikki Steele character in Faith Based. And so as we sent out the script and we're like, hoping that this person will look at this role or this person will look at this role, who's going to be the person you get first is probably the biggest thing, because once you have that first person, other established people are more likely to take a chance on you. And so that's why we love Lance so much, is like we'd all been in a couple things and we'd made a couple things, but it's not like we were household names or had 10 movies out or anything. And so when we were trying to cast this Father Mike thing, Pastor Mike,
We had several people in mind, but the idea of it being, a black family who had adopted this young white kid was just like so funny to us. And we were just like, Lance Reddick would crush this, he would kill this. And so he was the first person to come on board and say, yeah, I'll do it. And the roles are constructed in such a way that they don't take a lot of his time. That's like, again, fix it in pre, is if you're going to try to get a celebrity to be in your film who's a couple steps above you, wherever you are, you don't want to offer them, you don't want to try to lock them into something and be like, we're going to need you every single day for 3 weeks. Why would they say yes to that? It's like they're working on too many other things. If it's not a good experience, then they're trying to get out of it. But if you're like, I need you for like 2 or 3 days here and 2 or 3 days over there, that's a lot easier ask. And so it's sort of like connecting the pieces where it's like, okay, I got this celebrity and I need them for 6 days total, 3 days in the beginning, 3 days in the end. Well, then you get to go to your other roles and be like, hey, I've already got Zack and Dylan. Hey, John Doe, I've got Zack and Dylan. You've seen those guys and things, they're incredible. Would you take a look at this? And they're like, oh yeah, well, I've heard of those people and they're clearly putting together like a high level product. Yeah, let me take a look at it. And so you're able to hedge your way into bigger names. And so by the time that we'd gotten Jason Alexander was relatively late in the process. Okay. And so, but we had Margaret Cho, we had Lance Reddick, I think we had David Koechner already. And so those are 3 names that like are face recognizable, name recognizable, and they lend us a lot of credibility by having them. And so when you go to a Jason or someone who is more established, you have that with you as you bring the project to them. And so that's kind of like the behind the scenes of how that laid out. As far as working with these people, it's a dream. It's a dream scenario to get to work with these people. I mean, we got so lucky with Faith-Based. I mean, truly icons, like truly people who like Whammy, it's like David Koechner. Fuck. I mean, I love David Koechner. I love Lance Reddick. Margaret Cho is a living legend. And so you learn something different from each of these people. And it was just outstanding to see how they worked. I cannot say enough amazing things about Jason Alexander, who potentially one of the best roles, like easily in the conversation for one of the best roles in one of the best sitcoms of all time. He's in that conversation. And you think somebody on that level, if they're going to come down here and like sort of play with us, what are we going to get? Are we going to get somebody who like understands they're so much bigger or brings a certain ego? It's like you don't know who they are behind the scenes. And we got so incredibly lucky that every single person who showed up was so incredibly nice, incredibly generous with their creativity and their time. And Jason, like you could not dream of a more giving person to show up, someone who literally shows up completely off book. He had memorized his entire scenes, which is just mind blowing to think of somebody who like worked for Larry David and worked with Jerry Seinfeld for a decade or however long, and put that same level of work ethic into our dumb script, And so it was just sort of mind blowing, to tell you the truth. Yeah.
And that's so cool. And I mean, obviously we haven't made a movie. We've made a couple of short films, but we haven't done anything with people. So the best way that I can kind of put it into my world, it's when I watch something and I see something that means a lot to me, and I reach out to that person. I'm like, hey, look, I would just like to talk to you. Please just talk to me. And they respond with an email. And I mean, in the scope that I can put it in, that has to be kind of the same thing as working with a legend like George Costanza or a champ, and for that reason, I want to say thank you very much just for responding to the email, because, like we keep trying to churn out content and we like what we're doing. But it's when we actually get a response from somebody and they do take the time just to be like, look, I know that your podcast isn't that big of a deal, but just time means so much to me and Dylan, and I but before the show ends, I would just like to say thank you very much, because I don't think people fully understand how much just their attention can mean, especially during like COVID and stuff. People just paying attention to somebody and just listening and responding just means so much to some people. So you made a project that I love. I thoroughly enjoy Faith-Based. I have purchased it. I do thoroughly enjoy it. Yeah, I think that it's something because, like I said, I watch a lot of movies, but every once in a while you come across something where you're like, wow, they're actually they have passion in it. You know, you watch George Costanza or you watch Jason Alexander, you're like, this is a weird role, but he's giving it his all. And like, there's passion to what he's doing in a tiny project. And, you know, Lance Reddick, who I play video games. So I'm playing that Horizon.
Destiny
the Horizon. And he's in a lot of scenes. I'm like, God, this guy is like in my life. But then you watch him as like this soft, caring, you know, passionate role who's still just giving it his all. And it's so cool that you guys made something that people love so much that even though they're, you know, huge names, they made this project feel important to them. And that's super cool to us. And that's why we reached out to you and to your writing partner, Luke. But thank you very much for
man.
So we're going to get on with what we're doing.
Guy.
He's fine. His people are very nice to us. I'll say that.
You know, he's so busy. He's so busy.
Yeah. You responded. His people are very nice to us. Okay, so we're going to get on what we do in the show. Tanner, I really sincerely appreciate your point of view, your attitude, even your voice. You've got a great voice, and you're a beautiful human. So that's great. That also helps. Okay, so we're going to pitch to you 2 original ideas, and we'll see which one you like. Ask any questions you like. Really give Dylan the business. He's really lackluster when it comes to these things.
I'm bad.
Listen, I love pitching. I've got 2 different pitches out in the world right now that I'm super excited about. And so I have never been pitched to. So I am extraordinarily excited about receiving these pitches. I'm looking for some pitch decks. I don't have any pitch decks here. I don't know. Maybe those documents got lost in the email. I don't know.
Sorry about that.
We sent them to Luke and he hasn't responded.
We thought you guys talked every day. Now, the last time we pitched something to him, the last guest, they were like, "That's a stupid pitch," and that hurt our feelings.
It's great.
Yeah, well, we had to hear that, and he told us off the bat. He goes, "I'm going to tell you no." Because people need to hear no. We're like, "What? We haven't pitched yet," and he said no, and it hurt our feelings. But all right, so Dylan, why don't you go ahead? Since I won the last one.
Did I go first last time?
Do you want me to go?
All right, fine. I'll go first.
I want to preface this. I want to preface this by saying I don't know how many things I've pitched. Most of my pitches are like unscripted stuff because I just happen to have more hosting work than acting work, and so I get those opportunities more. But even for narrative and scripted pitching, which like we're doing more of now because of faith-based, I'm not gonna be a walk in the park on you. Like I expect these ideas because I want you guys to level up and do the next thing. And so if I didn't give you my legitimate attention, then I would be doing you a disservice.
I appreciate that. And honestly, if you don't crack the whip on Dylan, you'd be doing me a disservice.
I'm a writer. I'm used to being rejected by everybody I've ever sent an idea to.
That's true. That's true. That's why I sent my ideas to Dylan.
Yeah,
there you go.
I get
tell him no.
Then.
Circle of life. Circle of life.
All right. So, I don't know where this idea came from. Usually Zach texts me something and I spin it out, but this might have come from Zach. But so over a 24-hour span of time, when everybody on Earth goes to sleep, they experience the same dream. It's a point of view of someone looking outside their window and the sky lights on fire and the world ends. And then they wake up and they all have the logical assumption we have 8 months left. 5 months later, we follow a few characters. We follow a librarian who's helping people apply for jobs because they don't believe the world's actually going to end. We follow a guy in Montana who's dealing with like a militia of like Salvation people. And we follow an internet sleuth who joins a network of people trying to figure out the source of the dream and whether it's true or not. And they have 3 months until the dream comes to pass.
Hey, Dylan, you really spent some time on this.
I did spend some time
unfair.
on that, kind of. Well, I've also pitched this on the past several episodes, so.
It's getting good.
Yeah.
What's the name? Do you have a name for the project?
I don't have a name for the project yet.
Oh,
I know.
Well, we were calling it Living the Dream at first.
Living the Dream. Okay. Is that the end of your pitch?
Yes.
Say yes, because mine's way shorter.
Okay. All right. So what you have is a very interesting premise, but I don't think you have a pitch.
Shit.
Cool.
We're hearing that a lot recently.
Yeah, I think you have.
No, he's right.
Yeah, I think you have an incredibly interesting premise, but to me, that's not a pitch yet.
Mhm.
I'll tell you why. What you haven't done is explained a scenario about why someone would care, like the personal connection. You have the premise is very interesting. The idea that everyone in one day's time, everyone in the world had the exact same dream is incredibly interesting and incredibly compelling. You put a time, you put like a date on it, like this is 8 months from now. That's interesting. That establishes stakes. And then you said we follow a librarian, and then two
Mhm.
others.
Yeah.
What were the two others?
A handyman in Montana
Okay.
and an internet kid who joins like
Yeah.
an online sleuthing ring about the dream.
I like that
Okay.
last one.
Are these three people connected in any form or fashion?
Not in the beginning.
No, not necessarily.
So what I would do is I would challenge you to go back and figure out what is the personal, individual, human reason why someone should care. And because the world is going to end is like a good reason, but that works for like Fast and Furious and James Bond, which this doesn't seem like. This seems like what was the movie starring Kirsten Dunst a couple of years ago, and it's about another planet like
Melancholia.
Melancholia, where it's just like it's experienced on the individual level, right? It kind of feels sort of feels like an indie sci-fi to me. And so for it to work in that capacity, you need that like hyper personal connection. Like if the world is going to end in 8 months, my pitch to you would be this: is the librarian my pitch to you would be that everyone has this dream. It's set for 8 months from now, and the librarian and her husband, who is the handyman, find out that they're pregnant and they're due in 9 months.
Ooh. All right.
So
Great.
then
Now
we
Tanner's
have
got a writing credit.
So then we have a different
Story
set of
by.
stakes, right? We have a different set of stakes. Then you can also drive conflict between if you have a couple, once you connect these two people, someone believes it's true, the other one doesn't believe it's true. So now we have conflict between the two of them,
That's cool.
you know? And so it's like, that would be my thing is like, it's a very interesting premise, but what is the human component?
Yeah. See, I was thinking the interesting part of that would be since all the dreams are from one person's point of view, finding out why that person is important seemed to be almost a human element to me. But I guess if you don't know who that is, you can't put that in there. So yeah, what you're saying makes sense. And terrible pitch, Dylan. Good job.
Yeah.
No, I don't. It's not a terrible.
Well, no,
pitch.
it's
I
not a
think
terrible pitch because you said it's not a pitch. So
Not a pitch.
Yeah.
Amazing premise. Amazing.
Yeah,
we should
that's a
change
really
the
good-
show.
Dude, that's my favorite thing to do is to hit my friends with things like that where I'm like, yo, dude, what about what
That's
is
how
this?
Zach and I got started. Yeah.
That's literally our very first thing was Dylan and I used to work in a supermarket together. And one day I walked to him, and this was years ago, and I walked up to him, I was like, hey man, like sex robots are gonna be kind of a big deal soon, right?
Yeah,
And he's
they're
like,
coming.
probably. And I'm like, so the IT department has to be really fielding some pretty nasty stuff. So that we wrote an audio sci-fi thing of these found footage of all of the IT calls from these dudes calling this company being like, this sex robot doesn't work right. I need
hilarious.
And it's all these women answering the phone calls. So it's like a play on toxic masculinity. So that's kind of everything is how we started. All right, so here's my
I just want to say real quick, I think a pitch needs a personal oh shit moment, right? Like the premise is very cool, but the oh shit moment is the thing that like makes you like dig in and care. Like, oh shit, she's pregnant and she's due in 9 months.
Yeah.
That's suddenly hyper personal, raising the stakes to the nth degree, or whatever that might be for that idea. Right. It's like for faith-based, it's like, oh, 2 slackers living in the valley. Okay, that's not very interesting. Like, oh, okay, they're going to scam a church out of money. Okay, that's kind of interesting. And then it's like, oh, no, wait. If they don't pay the church back the money, the church is basically, going to go broke or whatever. And like, oh, damn, they have to accomplish this. So it's like, what is that in the dream coming of 8 months? Like if the person like, sorry, this is where I go. It's like, okay, they have this dream and like whatever. Do they barely see the person in the mirror? And so around the entire world, they're like looking for. They're like, fuck, they look like this.
Yeah.
And so there's a search for this person. you know, and then do they accidentally find her, and she, they don't know, you know, there's so much. It's a very interesting idea, but you need that like, oh shit, human component and connection.
Yeah, because I was thinking like if it's like a first person dream, and as this person like walks around their apartment, you'll pick up little clues, and it's like, okay, there's a calendar, so, and everything's in English, so they're, you know, and I was like, oh, that's a cool maybe reverse National Treasure thing.
It's like Don't Fuck with Cats, but for some sort of metaphysical.
Yeah, that's cool. Good job, Dylan. I hope you win next week. Okay,
I like it. It's a great premise.
No, it's a great premise. He always has great premises. All right, but here's my pitch. Which I think I might need a premise around, but here's my pitch. Not too far in the future. Now, science has evolved where they're on the cusp of treating almost every disease, right? Pills can treat cancer, pills can treat a lot of things. The newest drug treats Alzheimer's. So there's this one old man who's in a testing subject. He's very old, very frail. He's got his whole family around him, 3 full generations. Super old, sweet man. Takes this Alzheimer pill, immediately realizes that he was the Zodiac killer. All these memories come flooding back. He was this crazy, deranged serial killer before he kind of forgot what he was doing, before his family. So now this old man with all of these nasty memories has to decide what to do with these thoughts before he dies. So that's
what are the stakes?
Well, he is about to pass, and it turns out his wife was maybe an old hostage of someone that he murdered a while ago before this thing kicked in. I wasn't prepared to answer any questions on this. Usually I just win, and then we get to the questions later.
I mean, I'll let Tanner talk first.
No, go. Well,
no, I haven't. Like, tell it from the point of view of his like nursing aide or something who administers the medicine, and she realizes, oh, I'm taking care of a horrific monster.
There you go.
There you go.
The danger is if not only if the memories resurface, but if that old personality resurfaces, is she in danger?
There we go.
But that is
medicine.
I love that. That's what I was about to say. Dylan, you cut me off too much, and eventually it's going to cause us a rift.
No, but here, think about this. Look at this. Look at this. Zach had the premise. Dylan came in with the human component, human connection. That's how it happens. Like the idea of a nurse discovering that her elderly patient was, in fact, I would be hesitant to
not the Zodiac, but like along those lines.
An analog.
Yeah, an analog. Yeah, I think that's incredibly interesting. Are you familiar with, just conceptually, I'm in LA, Santa Monica is, I don't know, depending on traffic, 45 minutes that way. The arrest of Whitey Bulger, right?
Yeah.
Right. So here's a guy who was an incredibly dangerous mafia hitman and boss for years and years and years. And just a few years ago, you know, Johnny Depp played him in that movie. I don't remember the name of it. Something Mighty Bulger. Anyhow, Yeah. So just a few years ago, he was arrested in Santa Monica. Like, he was an elderly man living in an apartment in Santa Monica, just like hiding. And eventually, like the CIA or whoever it is, eventually found him and arrested him. And so the idea that there is something incredibly terrifying under your nose, always good. Always a great premise. Putting it on the nurse is like another layer of like interesting and brilliant. Like, if this guy's been in a coma, like Alzheimer's is interesting to make it Alzheimer's, but sort of like there's that. And then there's also the idea of like, I don't know, however you would do it. Like, does he take a pill and suddenly he has clarity? Or is it that he's come out of a coma and they didn't know who he was, and now they're able to figure out who he is? Like, there are lots of interesting things there. And lots of interesting ways to tell that story.
Yeah, I liked him being cognizant. I liked him being a sweet old man that like his grandkids, his great grandkids love him. But then now he just starts slowly getting these memories of, oh my God, I've done some terrible things. But I guess maybe having him confide into a nurse makes a lot of sense. That's cool.
Well, that's the thing, is like, that's why I asked, what are the stakes? Because what are the stakes and what are the timeline? Right? Like why fix it in pre. One of the best questions that you can always ask yourself is why now, and why must this happen now? And if you can't answer why now, then you're missing something. And so that would be my challenge to like, man, if we boil it down, man wrestles with his past. Okay. But why now? Why, like, what is the extra component, right? Because like we can get lost in he has Alzheimer's and blah 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 blah. Well, that's not really the story.
Right.
The story is that here is someone who occupies some beloved space, and then we find out they're secretly a terrible person, and the sins of the past are about to be revisited unless Nurse makes a daring decision, right? Like that's sort of like the why now component.
Cool.
You know, like telling it from the point of view of the nurse is like interesting, whereas is it like, you know, now are they trying to find him and she's the only one who knows where he is, you know?
Well,
like
I kind of like the idea of maybe him not having a lot of time left on the planet, and with all the information now, if the nurse were to tell people this after he dies, it would just seem like just a lie, you know? It's like, why are you blaming it on this old man? So maybe the timing could be that either that he's going to pass soon, or that he is struggling with being a good person with these bad memories. Like if he has to maybe come back and say, I actually did this. I have to own up to this.
My challenge then would be like, okay, it's not that he's dealing with an existential crisis. It is that, and you might not like this, but this would be my push into like a why now. Like if this guy's dying, or he's on the precipice of dying and he knows it, and he also knows where the body is buried, I don't know. And so does he request the nurse's help to track down a young woman who lives 2 states over, because he feels such an incredible amount of guilt? He killed her mother. This is so dark. He killed her mother, and they've been looking for her mother ever since, and he knows where the body is buried. And now he feels like he needs to get this off of his chest. Like that is like a weird sort of like, fuck, what do you do? Because if the nurse turns him in, he's just going to get arrested and rot in jail. And this young woman, maybe she will or will not ever get the closure of finding out where her mother is, you know? So it's like, what is the why now component?
Or maybe this guy, before he passes, unloads all this information, and the nurse goes to the police about it, and the police are like, oh, you were the killer the whole time. Huh. That's crazy. You killed your own mom. No, it's not. I like what you said better.
Well, it's just like we have to push these things. We have to like push these ideas into the like, why would someone? What is the action for which we can force someone to care? Yeah,
no, that's a very good point. So when you have like an idea for a premise, do you run it past like Luke, or do you like really just start working on it until Luke wouldn't be able to ask you any questions about it?
Oh no, you definitely want questions to be asked. Okay. I'll daydream. What I'm good at is I'm good at premises, and then I honestly have too many of them. And some of them are only half baked. And then I do the thing to myself that I just did to you guys, which is like the why now? Why would someone care? Like, what makes this unique? Because it's easy and fun to come up with like, what if we get a disease and it's a disease that slowly turns all of our bodies into like robot parts, and then how do we fight that disease? Like that's okay, I just made that off the top of my head, but it's like, okay, that's like kind of interesting and kind of unique, and but why do we care? Like what is the human personal component and connection there, right? And so like I came up, what was the premise I came up with not too long ago? What was it?
Wait, Dylan, did you write down a robot disease idea?
Yeah, robot disease. Yeah. But it's like you can have the premise, but it has to rely on some sort of like human personal connection. Like I don't know if you're familiar with like the 7 basic plots, like the idea that all of human storytelling can be broken down into 7 plots. Or then there's like, what is it? Brad Snyder wrote Save the Cat, which is a brilliant book on screenwriting. Some people look down their nose at it, but I also think it's incredibly accurate. Sorry, I don't know, sort of went off on a tangent there. It's like you can have the biggest idea, but you have to have like the human connection and component.
Okay. So say that you had these two premises and you're like, all right, I just want to spend a little bit of time work on these two premises. Of the two that you heard today, not pitches, premises that were lobbed at you, not pitched, underhand softball lobbed at you, which one would you try to take a swing at to be like, all right, I got to work on this thing because this seems like maybe worth my time?
It's interesting. So I have to back into it from like a couple different angles. One of them is like, I'm going to put on my executive producer hat. Let's do that. If I'm putting on my executive producer hat, I know that sci-fi is popular around the entire world. Alzheimer's and the ideas of someone having a hidden past is also internationally friendly. What would it be? What would it be? I would probably lean on the idea of everyone in the world having had the same dream. And then what I would do is I would probably view it from a couple different character perspectives and try to figure out if I could make them come together.
Yeah.
And like just me totally taking the reins of something that I wasn't asked to take the reins of.
Yeah.
Like to me, like the idea of a woman who's supposed to give birth a month after this date is compelling.
Yeah.
To me, the idea that there is, I also start to think of like, what would happen? Well, there'd be millions of interviews on TV and Fox and NBC and all the stations would be like, everyone had this dream, bring in dream expert so-and-so. Everyone, you know, of the 100 employees at our station, we talked to this composite sketch person, and this is what they think that the composite idea could be of. And it's a drawing of like a young boy or a young girl or an adult boy or whatever. And then I would flip it and and then my thing would be like the one person in the world who didn't have the dream. Is that person, and they're sitting in their living room looking at a drawn image of them, and they were in everyone else's dream.
That is cool.
Cool.
They're like, I didn't even have the dream. What are you guys talking about? I didn't have the dream. They're like, 8 billion people are like, no, we had the dream, dude.
Yeah.
They're like, I
cool.
totally dreamed it.
Yeah.
And so it's like, does she
I'm
go
not
out
having
in
people
public
over for lunch?
Does she go out in public? Is she like a waitress or something, or he a waiter or whatever? Did this person work in some sort of capacity in which they have to be out in the public, and more people are like looking at them out the corner of their eye, and so suddenly they're like running for their life. They have no idea what's going on. They wind up bumping into the librarian who's supposed to start a life after the end of the world.
Cool.
Like I would like M. Night Shyamalan try to piece it together in there.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, so while working on a premise, and we'll use faith-based as an example, and you have a pitch and you're working on it. Now, when did the name faith-based, like when did that kind of pop?
Relatively early on. We're good with titles. I think a title is extremely important, which is why I asked Dylan, I was like, do you have a title?
Yeah.
Zach makes you go first, so I get all the hard questions.
I struggle.
Sorry.
Listen, we've done about 100 episodes of this show, and I am struggling with titles now. We've had so many titles to movies. I'm like, it's got to be catchy. It's got to be cool. It's got to be this, got to be that. And then I thought, Dylan, here you go. Blah. And he goes, that's stupid. I'm like, God.
Well, you got to workshop. You got to workshop your titles. You got to get a bunch of titles together. You know, a good, catchy title tells you what is in the movie. Vaguely tells you what the movie is about, like faith-based, and the S here is a $sign. Like there's a little extra component there about the film that reveals itself, right? And so like
I love that hat. Where can you get that hat?
Well, there's a box of them in my closet. You guys give me your address, I'll send you a couple.
100%. I will definitely wear that. I love it.
Yeah.
All right, that's cool. Okay, so if we had a premise, which is similar to what Dylan said, which is a good one that I came up with a while ago, what do you think would be a good working title for this?
Man, okay, a working title. Okay, well, we can do this. We can do this right here and right now.
Yep.
Dylan, do you have any rough titles at all? Anything at all that you're like, when I think about it, I call it this?
I called it "Living the Dream" just because I thought everyone was kind of living that same weird dream. Okay. But Dylan didn't like that title.
We're just gonna spit a bunch about. No good ideas, no bad ideas. We're just throwing them out.
I'm just generally hesitant to if it's about a dream, using the word "dream" in the title. I'm I understand you. I understand doing it. I don't
Mhm.
think personally I'm a huge fan of doing that. Um, something like oh man, I don't know how to like.
His titles are so long. They're like a
But
paragraph.
I my titles are for longer like book stuff.
Sure, that's fine.
Yeah.
You could have that. Like anything at all that you've been thinking about.
Yeah, hit me with it.
Something about like not imagine the end, but something along those
Uh-huh.
lines. Something about
Okay.
like s- to say seeing the end of
Seeing
something.
the end. That's not
Uh-huh.
bad.
Uh-huh.
All right.
Okay. What are dream terms and dream terminology? Because that is something that we're hanging this on. Is that
Yeah.
everyone had the same dream?
So like dream terms, you got the word lucid. You have REM.
Yeah, REM sleep.
Lucidity's end.
Cat naps. Lucidity's
Mhm.
end. That's crazy. That sounds.
Lucidity's end has a ring to it. I would write that down. That's one that goes
yeah.
on the list.
All right, we're just going to stick with that. Yeah, I like that. That's the working title right now.
Yeah.
Obviously, Dylan was throwing on Blue Harvest. I think it was used before. I like Lucidity's end. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, I mean that could be our working title.
Yeah, we'll use that as a working title. We don't want to take
yeah.
up too much of your time, Mister.
Yeah, that would be our working title.
Yeah.
I would try to figure out, and the other thing, the thing that's so fun about a premise is you just have to figure out the plot underneath it, and you need like that oh shit moment at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Like full spoiler alert is the idea that if this girl isn't killed, then the world does end.
Yeah.
So what we have here is we have a mother who's very interested in the world continuing in direct opposition with a young woman who feels like she has the rest of her life to live, and she doesn't know if the world is going to end or not. And so we have inherent conflict. Like what are those, does this pregnant woman, does she literally in the final scenes of the thing, does she strangle this other person only for everyone to be like, oh, you know what? The comet wasn't going to hit the earth anyhow, blah, 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 blah. And so then she must wrestle with what she did. Like, I don't know. Those are just like rough.
That's great. Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, you mentioned Save the Cat earlier, and we've used Save
Blake
the Cat.
Snyder, that's his name. Sorry.
Yeah,
yes,
we've used Greg Calhoun's what's his book, Dylan?
Successful Guide for the Successful Screenwriter.
Yeah, so we do that. Do you have like a method that you always use when kind of plotting out how the story is going to go, or do you kind of let the story just organically work?
I don't go into it blind. I can't recommend that. That might work for some people. To me, it's a recipe for giving yourself excuses not to continue. Okay. I think for me, it starts with like cool premise. Like Luke and I have a TV show that we're going to start pitching. I'll tell you the premise. I'm not going to tell you the title. But the premise is that there is a pill that exists that removes the human need for sleep. And so that changes culture into a 24-hour society, right? And so the countries where this pill is illegal, their economies shoot through the roof because suddenly they're productive all day, every day. But the flip side is that the pill, one of the things that happens when you sleep is your brain de-stresses and stress decreases and whatnot. And so since no one is sleeping, violence and violent crimes increase dramatically. And so where's the human component? So what we have is the idea that we have a police officer and his wife who is a scientist for the company that makes this pill. Only one company makes it. They own the patent. No one else can make it. And she uncovers that they know that taking the pill causes extreme violence in people over time. She's about to reveal this information when she's kidnapped. Her husband, being a police officer, has to be on this drug so that he can go out and be policing all the time.
Ooh.
Okay.
So when he comes in the door and she's being kidnapped right in front of him, someone shoots him with the antidote, which causes him to fall asleep for like 2.5 weeks. And he wakes up 2.5 weeks later in his house. His wife is gone. Now he must find her.
Okay.
That is cool.
Cool.
Right. So that's a rough premise, but you know exactly where it's going. There's the sci-fi component. It's like, oh, what an interesting world. But there's the human connection where it's like, fuck, how's this guy find his wife? The criminal underground, the drugs, uncovering a conspiracy, like all of those things.
Yeah.
Don't steal it.
No. That's cool.
So that would be, but where it began was premise, then it was human connection. So that's where I would go, Dylan, with your idea is like
human connection.
What's the human component that will make someone care?
That's cool. All right, now before we're going to go, I'm going to ask you one more question, and it has nothing to do with anything we've talked about. Okay. Now, you have faith-based and you had the other religious-based short. Now, if Jesus were to come back now, do you think he'd be a TikTok star?
Man, that's a good one.
Because that was something I pitched to Dylan like a couple of years ago. I'm like, honestly, if Jesus comes back, like he would do low-level miracles on TikTok, become a mega star, and that'd be the only way to get an actual following, right?
Man, that's a movie right there, guys. That's the movie you should pitch. Is that like some local station, some guy out
that chest again, Zach.
Yeah, somebody out there in the middle of nowhere has a TikTok. It's like Jesus on TikTok. You ever seen the movie Michael, starring
John Travolta?
Yeah,
John Travolta, right? And it's like, is he or isn't he? That's the whole thing. It's like, is he or isn't he an angel? It's weird how things always seem to work out for him. Then you see the wings. It's undeniable. Blah 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 blah. It would be so interesting to do that exact same thing, but it's like viral TikTok famous Jesus.
Yep. See?
That's an excellent idea. Yeah,
I knew
that's
it.
A good one.
Oh, that's so cool. Miss Tanner Thomason, thank you so much for being on our show. I like I said earlier, it puts so much fuel in us to keep creating stuff just by talking to people that are doing the things that we do. So thank you. That is so cool for you. To spend your time with us. You're such a cool guy.
Anytime.
Yeah, right on. So we're going to say Dylan won this episode. And most likely, we also have a live show on Twitch that we try to do with people that watch our show. We create the show with their help. So most likely, if you're watching this now, tune into Twitch and see what we're doing with this, with the cool suggestion Mr. Thomas gave us. Tanner, do you want to tell anybody what to look for, what to watch? Make our friends and family do homework. Give them something.
Oh my gosh. Well, honestly, nothing would make me happier than for everybody to watch Faith-Based. It's free on Amazon Prime. We're so proud of it. If you want to follow me on Instagram, that's Graham of Tan. And that's where I like put all kinds of updates about all kinds of things. Like I host a TV show. Luke and I potentially have some like really exciting news coming in the next couple weeks, and that's stuff that'll like break out through Instagram and other social media if we wind up having exciting news to share.
Yeah.
So
awesome. All right, so we're going to put a link to Faith-Based in the show notes. We're going to put a link to your Instagram in the show notes. So if you want to see what Mr. Tanner's up to, click. And please watch Faith-Based. I cannot express enough how cool, interesting, high and also low stakes. Really, really cool, well done, tight movie. I dig it. Great job. Yeah, great job. So thank you. Dylan, do you have anything to say to our friends before we get out of here?
Just thanks again to Tanner for showing up. Nothing for anybody else.
Screw everybody else.
Love it. Okay, if you're watching out there, drink some water. I have been Zach. He's been Dylan. He's been Tanner. And you've been great. Have a great day, everybody. Bye
everybody.
Thank you.